Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Today's Lunch and Learn workshop is on building your Amazon channel. We will have a dedicated time at the end of the presentation for questions. So think of your questions along the way, and we will have time to answer those. We also request for everyone to turn their cameras on for this session for more engagement. Now that we're all settled in, let's take a moment to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Anna. So Anna is the head of operations at Montaro Capital Corp, driven by her passion for the Amazon marketplace and e-commerce. Starting in 2017, her journey into the Amazon space evolved from curiosity to self-taught expertise, enriched by experiences as an account executive at an esteemed Vancouver marketing agency. The blend of entrepreneurial spirit and creativity led her to join the Montaro team in 2021. She now leads a team of enthusiastic operators and vibrant marketers who specialize in e-commerce. Her goal is to empower brands of all sizes to excel in the world of Amazon, turning their aspirations into success stories. Anna, thank you so much for being here, and I welcome you to begin the session.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and meet all of you guys and hear what you have to say.
Thanks, guys. My name is Shai. I work with Anna, and I'll also be doing a part of the presentation today. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for dedicating your Friday lunch hour to spending some time with us today and learning more about Amazon. My name is Shai, and this is Anna. And we run a company called We Grow Brands, and our mission is to help emerging and established brands build their Amazon channel. It's a challenging thing to do, as you'll find out through the course of our presentation, and as a consequence, oftentimes our skill set is important in helping some of our partners be really successful on the world's largest e-commerce platform. And so what we're going to talk about today is we're talking a little bit about Amazon so that we can truly appreciate how gargantuan it really is. We'll talk what we have found are the success factors for businesses that are able to succeed on Amazon. And there's a bunch of things that have to be in place initially in order for a brand to truly take a good shot at it. And then Anna will then talk a little bit about the technical nuts and bolts and the operations and some of the considerations of how do you actually get it done. Does that sound good to everybody?
Nice.
Brilliant. And in the chat, we would love to know if you can just post your name, the company that you represent, and maybe a little bit about your product, just so we can take a look with the side of our eye and see what kind of brands there are in the room so that we may be able to cater some of our comments to you.
Let us know, do you have an Amazon store already? So this can help us cater this lunch and learn to you. So let us know. We'll continue.
And so the idea is for us to keep the presentation portion relatively brief and really engage in a discussion afterwards and answer your questions. So consider this a bit of a primer, and then we'd love to open it up and have a conversation with you. Does that work for everybody? All right, then let us begin. So, like I said, we'll start with why Amazon, what it takes to succeed on Amazon, the Amazon store management, and a little bit about us. And then we'll take the Q&A. So Amazon, unsurprisingly, is the world's largest marketplace. It does, about $700 billion globally, with 43% of the US market share. And just to give you a sense, like $700 billion makes it bigger than some of the world's most developed economies. Right? It really is a government that employs tens and hundreds of thousands of people and is a very large and complicated machine. And just to give you a sense of its market dominance, it controls 43% of the market in the US, with Walmart being a sixth of its size, and probably by our estimates, 5 to 10 years behind in terms of technology and capabilities on that front. 2.5 billion monthly visits with purchase intent to the site. So people who go to Amazon go to buy, and there are 2.5 billion of them. And I'm sure many of you have heard this the stat before, and that is that over 60%, and I've heard estimates say as high as 80% of customer searches and product searches begin on Amazon. and they have revolutionized the one-click button, which just says, I found my product and I pushed a button and bought it. And as I'm sure everyone in this room has probably been an Amazon customer at some point. Continuing on within the Amazon space is the understanding of a third-party seller. And this is an important concept, is that people think for the most part that Amazon mostly sells Amazon stuff and then sells some stuff by other sellers, but that's actually not true. So 2/3 of what Amazon sells, $500 billion in gross merchandise value, actually comes from third-party sellers, and it's growing more rapidly. And that is the case because Amazon ultimately de-risks a lot of its selling. Whether a seller does well or does poorly, Amazon still makes money. And so it really has the business case to bring on many sellers and flood the marketplace with all kinds of products in a way that is relatively risk-free for Amazon, so it can make money off advertising, fulfillment, platform fees, and some of the other categories that we'll learn about. Most of those sellers, most of those successful third-party sellers, almost 90% of them use Fulfilled by Amazon, which is use of Amazon's warehousing distribution system to get product to the last mile for the customer. So oftentimes when you see a Prime badge next to a brand on Amazon, they're using FBA in order to fulfill the product and get it to you same day or the next day, which customers have been conditioned to expect from e-commerce today. And probably Amazon's greatest advantage when it comes to other direct-to-consumer offerings that usually take 3 or 4 days. And so for categories, for products that you want to have immediately, Amazon has built that conditioning. You know, Amazon may be the biggest, but there's a lot more to it than size specifically, right? You know, as we mentioned, lots of monthly visits that are dedicated specifically to shopping with a specific purchase intent. And we find that for established brands that have worked in other channels, the revenue lift off Amazon can be 10 to 15% plus, usually in a way that is non-cannibalistic, because the SKUs that do well on Amazon may not be the same SKUs and assortments that do well in many of their other channels. And like we mentioned, Amazon is a commerce-first marketplace. So unlike direct-to-consumer, which usually uses Facebook or Instagram or TikTok as advertising, the primary intent is not social engagement or interest or even news, but it is purchase. And so beyond that, we found a number of trends that exist in Amazon that brands can't really ignore in 2024. The first is brand legitimacy. So for a brand to really have made it or to be recognized as a brand that has presence, it needs to have a few SKUs on Amazon. They may not be its entire assortment. It may be a certain subset. By being on Amazon is an important customer validation point. The second is category dominance through brand, right? And what this means is that brands that have a strong brand cachet can price higher on the Amazon marketplace. So in addition to helping others build the Amazon channel, we also have our own Amazon brand. And so this is a very strange flex, but we are the #1 seller of glass nail files on Amazon. We make nail files that are sold out of Czech glass, Bohemian glass. We are the #2 seller in all nails and buffers on Amazon globally, behind Amazon itself, with its Amazon Basics Emery board. And so this is a business that we've doubled over the past couple of years. And through our brand cachet and through the quality of our product, we're often able to charge a premium on Amazon that is 10 to 20% higher than our competitors for a similar product. So branding really does matter. Last is the concept of the flywheel effect, in the sense that once you overcome that initial inertia of listing and generating your ratings and reviews, it works really well. You're on the front page, you have a 4.7 rating, you have 15,000 reviews, and then all you do is send inventory to Amazon and they give you a big fat check every 2 weeks. It's difficult to get there, but when you do, it's a very profitable and relatively easy to maintain channel. And lastly, is the fact that Amazon is brutally honest as a marketplace. And so when you list your product, you will find out every small thing that's wrong with it. And you know, getting a 1-star review because the packaging is damaged is just a par for the course, or because there's a small defect in your product. So it is a very honest way of receiving market research and market feedback through a very democratic way of providing that feedback. So those are some of the reasons why Amazon is large and why Amazon is important. It's also a very difficult marketplace. And the idea here is not necessarily to scare you, but to make you aware of what it's, of some of the dangers and pitfalls of listing on this marketplace, and how difficult it is to succeed, and the fact that in order to succeed, you really have to be well prepared. And so some of the stats on the left is that the vast majority of Amazon sellers don't make very much revenue at all, less than 300K a year. Only 1% break $1 million to an annual sales. And out of the 10 million third-party sellers on Amazon, only a quarter of them are actually active, which means that there's an attrition rate of 75%. And a very unfortunate stat is that a quarter of Amazon sellers are not actually profitable. And so why is that the case? Well, the case is that Amazon is very complex and ever-changing. It's not the Amazon of our grandfathers 10 or 5 years ago. It's no longer possible to simply list a product and be successful at it, because Amazon is constantly making changes and tweaks. It's also much more competitive than it was, and most categories are dominated by a few large and well-established brands. Because of its complexity, it requires a specific skill set to really be successful. And lastly, there's macroeconomic pressures, and that is that, we know that cost inflation, both for logistics and production, are really pressuring margins. And as we'll talk about later, pricing high is the #1 sin on Amazon. And so as a consequence, it's really important that brands keep their costs low. And lastly is the fact that it's not core for many brands. And so we find that many brands leave money on the table by simply being too frustrated and not engaging. And some of the common complaints that we get is like, it's too hard, I can't master this, or my products are getting negative ratings or reviews even though I have a brilliant product, and my inferior competitors are doing better than I am. And then the last one is, I'm simply not making money, so I gave it up. And those are the reasons why the marketplace itself is quite challenging. But fear not, the good thing here is that with diligent execution, you're able to master this marketplace and really get it to a place where it's effectively generating good, reliable cash flows for you, as long as the inventory is consistent. So let's talk about the 5 things that we have found are important to succeed on Amazon. And I'll kind of go through these at a fairly high level, just so that we are able to remove some of that time constraint and really turn this into a discussion. So what we find, there's 5 criteria that really matter when it comes to doing well on Amazon. The first and foremost, at least for me, because I'm a finance guy, and that is strong unit economics. And at the core is a very simple concept. Your product at run rate, at scale, needs to make money on every unit that you sell. Because if it's not, then it's not worth doing, right? You may be generating revenue, but really if nothing's falling at the bottom line, and nothing can fall to the bottom line, then it's not a productive endeavor for you. And there are many brands that, because of unit economics not really working, Amazon is just not the marketplace for them. The second is brand traction and proven product market fit. So you probably don't necessarily want to start your consumer products journey on Amazon, because it requires a certain level of refinement. Third is inventory consistency, which means you have to have the manufacturing capacity and a strong supply chain in order to be able to feed the beast. And fourth is having beautiful creative assets and making sure that the traffic you do drive converts well. And lastly, and this is a philosophical one, is that the determination and the resources to grow and succeed. And that is that the idea, the core here is that you can no longer just list a product on Amazon and have it be a runaway success. It's kind of like building any other channel, and requires time, effort, energy, and ultimately capital in order to make work. So I'm going to talk about each of these in turn, and building through some of the specifics, and then I'll hand it over to Anna to talk about some of the operational pieces. So unit economics, as I've mentioned in the past, pricing above your competitors is the #1 sin on Amazon. The Amazon A9 algorithm will simply hammer you in terms of ranking your product up if you're priced out of the range. As a matter of fact, Amazon has some practices that are highly questionable. For example, its bots scour the e-commerce landscape, and if they find that you are priced lower on direct-to-consumer or another marketplace, the algorithm will hammer you. The other thing that makes unit economics challenging is that Amazon will take between 50 and 60 cents of every dollar of revenue that you charge. And here's how that breaks down. Platform fees, the right to list on their platform, is usually about 15%, although it may be 8% in some product categories. FBA fees, the cost of handling your inventory and delivering it to your customers, is about 20 to 30%. And this is really driven by the size and weight of your product. So having a high value to weight ratio or value to volume ratio really matters. Performance marketing, which is really just Amazon's way of printing money, means that in order for you to rank your product up and to advance, you have to spend money advertising on Amazon for you to rank versus your other brands. So they've created this auction process where it really kind of becomes a survival of the fittest. And even though these are typically higher at launch, a good marketing stat is about 15 to 20% of revenue. And so what does that mean? If Amazon takes between 50 and 60 cents of every dollar, you really need your production and logistics costs to be 20 to 25% maximum so that you can achieve a consistent product contribution margin of 15 to 20% of every dollar that you sell. And if it's really below that threshold, things start becoming marginal. Now, what I will say is that this is at run rate, which means that by the time you have a little bit of scale, your marketing's become a little more efficient, you've ranked up to, a 4.6 rating with a few hundred reviews, then that margin becomes consistent. But at that level, if you can't charge what you need to charge, then this is probably not the project for you. Second is brand traction and product market fit. And so brand traction is an element of having your brand be known and understood to some degree, right? It's not super necessary, but it helps because it helps you ease into your acquisition. If somebody is looking for nail file on Amazon, then that's a lot harder to attract and convert that customer rather than they're looking for bona fide beauty nail file, which, as we all know, are the best in the market. And so when somebody looks for nail file, we may not be the first on the list. Fortunately, we work hard to make sure that we are. But if somebody looks for our brand name specifically, we're definitely going to be on the first of the list and the easiest to click on. Second is the product market fit element really means that you've gone through several cycles of product refinement. As we mentioned, Amazon is ruthless and small flaws can result in a 1-star rating. Now, what that means by virtue of math being what it is that if you want a 4.5 rating for your product, that means you have to have 10 5-star ratings and only one 1-star rating, right? And why are those reviews critical? Because early on in the process, if your reviews are poor, call it below 4.4, Amazon begins removing advertising options. The algorithm begins to punish you. So it's really important that you be strong out of the gate with a refined product that really minimizes the possibilities of having 1-star reviews. And as such, we ultimately recommend that Amazon is not necessarily your first channel. It's an acceleration channel, but having your product be previously purchased, repurchased, and loved by the customers that you serve makes it really important and adds to the probability of succeeding on Amazon. Inventory consistency, or Anna's favorite topic. The #2 sin on Amazon is running out of inventory. And what that means is that you kind of become a victim of your own success. If you sold 100 units in your first month, 200 in your second, 500 in your third, you may be onto a runaway success. The last thing you want to do is stifle that success by not having enough product to send to Amazon, because what that does is that it resets your ranking, it undermines a lot of the advertising momentum that you have. And so before taking this on, you have to make sure that you're able to feed the beast. And that really means two things that are fairly straightforward. The first is having enough manufacturing capacity, and the second is having enough supply chain reliability. So we would recommend having good relationships with your partners in order to do that. What I will say though is that if you do have this in place and your product does begin to look like a hockey stick, then you'll be able to capitalize on your supply chain and manufacturing capability to really drive sales well. The fourth is beautiful creative assets. So as Amazon shoppers, we all know what a correct Amazon listing looks like. And we all know what one that looks like a little sketchy looks like. Some of the bullets aren't there, the pictures are low res, there's not that beautiful section of A+ content. And when you see that, you said, okay, well, I don't know if this is a real brand or something that may be a knockoff. And so I'm not going to invest in that brand. The good news is that creating for that is fairly straightforward. There's a formula, and it's like first photo, high-res photo on a white background, second photo, lifestyle, third photo, infographic. And so there's that correct formula that is required to really check that box. Now, the good thing about that is that it's not terribly difficult conceptually, just requires you to have the ability to produce beautiful creative assets in order to put them on Amazon in a format that Amazon wants. And then lastly is a bit of a philosophical point, and one of that I alluded to before. Amazon isn't a magic bullet. It may have been 10 years ago. It kind of already wasn't 5 years ago, but now it's a channel like any other channel. And so that means that you're going to have to invest time, effort, energy, capital in order to make it grow. And there's no guarantee of success, right? And so the hard truth is that in order to build a product listing to the front page will take 6 to 12 months, right? It will require resources. Now, it will be cheaper in the sense that you don't have to do as heavy advertising. And so you know, you don't have to have a massive amount of inventory stocked up in order to feed a retail partner's needs. You start small, you start scaling through. Your advertising expense as a percentage of revenue is going to be high to start. But then ultimately, as your sales grow, you'll notice your cash minimum flatten out, and then ultimately the product will become profitable. But depending on the product, the competitive intensity, the marketplace that you've chosen, it's still 6 to 18 months before it has the shot of becoming that cash cow that we all hope that it becomes. That said, if you have the time and resources, it's an exceptional channel, and one that once you've made it can really move to cruise control. And so that's it for my sections. I would then like to turn it over to Anna, our head of ops, to talk about the real nitty-gritty.
Thank you. So Shai and I's slides may intertwine a little bit because he is a CFO that really understands Amazon, which is not often. I see from the chat here, we have a whole bunch of different types of goods and services, and it sounds like you guys are very passionate about what you do, and that's the first start, really. And you guys are obviously here, so you're here to learn more about Amazon on the operational side. I'm less wordy than Shai, as you can tell.
I hear that all the time.
Okay, compared to other people, right? So before you start your journey on Amazon, part of what I do here is educate. What I would love for everybody is that you understand what you're getting yourself into before opening up the Amazon store. It's an undertaking. So some of you have probably Shopify or WooCommerce or maybe like a WordPress site that you're currently paying money for. You have to put time and energy into. Amazon is no different. If anything, it's more time and energy because now you're confined to Amazon practices. On Shopify, you can build beautiful different types of blocks and like just have apps. Amazon is not that friendly and that lax. So to start your journey, when people are serious about starting on Amazon, I like to be realistically cautious about what people are getting into, because the last thing I want you to do is to invest all this time and resources into doing this. And it's quite hefty. So before you start, to be successful, getting the right pieces in place first. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but getting the right pieces first is key. So one, do you have trademarks? Do you have pending trademarks? So if you're looking to operate in Canada, so that would be CIPO. If you're looking to operate in US, USPTO, getting those in place will help set you up for success down the road. As Shai mentioned, you're gonna hockey stick that. Once you become a hockey stick, you're gonna have other competitors coming for you. You're gonna have counterfeiters, you're gonna have hijackers. That's where trademarks blends into brand registry, which is Amazon's protection program. So that's one step of registration. While you're registering, the assortment decisions. So we have some plant-based milk. I'm not sure if you have like different like variations of sizes. What else do we have here? We had Spice Girls. What an amazing name, by the way. So you might have different spices that you're like, hey, I have 10 spices. Which one should I put on? Should I put them all on? So these are decisions that you want to make, which lends to Shai's beginning conversation is what profitability are you looking at? Which one is one that can be a loss leader? Whereas the other ones are going to be your nice profitable ones. So that's a decision that you can make. 6 to assortment, what I'm going to put on, and then in 6 to 12 months, what am I going to keep on Amazon, and what's running away with that inventory. So next step, inventory management is something that I would say I'm glad that you guys are all in this webinar, Lunch and Learn today. I have experience with successful brands and I have experience with brands that close. So I think that's very important that we know what the pitfalls are. Every newer infant toddler brand, as I like to call it, they do very well. Like, so they walk, they crawl, and then they walk, and then all of a sudden they're jogging. All of a sudden they're running. So the bottleneck for a lot of smaller brands, mom and pop shops, is they can't scale due to working capital. All of a sudden their supplier is like, hey, I'm going on Chinese New Year. It's an Indian holiday. My house can't bake that many cookies. So it's a whole bunch of reasons why it gets bottlenecked towards that pace. So I think that's the biggest reason why a lot of stores either shut down or lose their momentum and ad efficiency and sales efficiency. So inventory management is something that you would want to consider locking down. On top of the inventory management, I know there are costs to maybe shipping or supply, whether you need ingredients for your spices or your cakes and your juices. And sometimes prices of like fruit goes up. So what do you do then? Which there's a really great reason why myself and Shai are both in this conversation, because it's not just operations, it's not just finances, they all come together, which comes with consistency, time, and patience. Does it move?
Should move.
Are we
There you go.
moving? So once you get that store up and running, you've got your trademarks, you applied for brand registry, you know your assortment, you've got your supply down lock, and you're ready to send in your inventory. There are 4 things that every brand needs to look at when they're on Amazon, and it's time consuming. You're at the whim of Amazon. A lot of, not to deter anyone, but a lot of brands just give up because of fatigue. It's like, I don't want to keep like fighting with Amazon to make sure my listing stays up. The thing with Shopify or other e-commerce sites that you may own is when you want to take down that listing, you take it down. Amazon has bots that will scour every single listing to make sure you're compliant. That could be with like Health Canada, getting your NPN numbers. Are you like a health food? So there's that. So what we see here is account health. There's a compliance score for every single store in every single marketplace. So for example, like let's just say the juice and cakes, right? You do really well in US, your score might be 200 to start with. In Canada, you do even better. You might be at 300. So what is account health? Amazon actually sort of evaluates each brand in its marketplace 0 to 1,000. It's very rare to have 1,000, but we're proud to say we have 2 brands that are 1,000, that even Amazon executives are confused as to how you do it. one, customer service performance, you're answering all the messages within 24 hours. You're sending them replacements if they say, hey, you know, like my hot sauce was broken and I know it's not your fault, but you're like, hey, you know, Sadie's hot sauce. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. We're going to replace that for you for free. So that's customer service performance. You'll find though that the messages are far and wide. We sell that nail file here. We sell every 30 days, we sell about 13,000 units. I probably get 2 messages in the US every week. And they're usually just happy with like a refund or a replacement. Very easy, where it's the FBA, part of those fees goes towards your customer service. So for those of you who shop on Amazon, you'll know that refund, done. Speak to customer service, done. It rarely actually filters to the actual brand owner themselves. So that's one. The second bullet to make your account health better is voice of the customer. What are your customers saying about your product? And that can be through comments, reviews, your store feedback, as well as your refund. What are people choosing in the refund status? Is it no longer needed? Okay, so that's not your fault. This case is horrible. That's our fault. That's within our control. So if you're within the control of the actual product itself, Amazon will ding you. But that's not the end all be all. The great thing about voice of the customer and reviews is you get so much feedback about your product. That's something that with scaling, you'll start to understand what your customers want and what they're looking for, what sets your product apart. So that's the great thing about Amazon. I think we made it sound like a huge beast, which it is, but it can be also a very positive beast as well. Third account health score is product policy compliance. So this is really, it's very, very important and essential in the food section. Amazon always wants to be on the customer side first. And if they deem anything that might have lead in it or might have arsenic in it, and you might not, and you probably don't, but it could be in the comments, it could be in the keywords that might have triggered it, maybe some images that they infer that it might, they take down your listing. So again, like on your Shopify sites, you take down a listing when you take it down. There's no product policy compliance except for Health Canada or NPMs, etc. But on Amazon, they just kind of guess sometimes. So that's where our operations team here comes in. Brand owners don't want to be on the phone 10 hours a week. They don't want to be on the phone after Black Friday saying why their Check Glass nail file does not have pesticides on it, or that there's no arsenic in it, or there's no lead in it, etc. So we have the inside road as to how to do that, and we can actually teach you how to do it as well. So that's third. Shipping performance. So we talked about inventory at length, and I think a little too much, but it's better to know more than less. Shipping performance means you're packing how Amazon expects it to be packed. So the dimensions are correct, the units are correct, the weight is correct, the labels, even the labels are correct, where the labels are placed is correct. So if you're able to maintain these 4 bullet points, you can move that score towards the green in 1,000. It gives you a reputation as a reputable brand. So when you speak to customer service about anything, or seller support, as they call it, or account health, they give you more credit, they give you more credence, because they're like, hey, you know what? Anna and Shai's Check Glass nail files, they're 1,000. So we should be listening to them. They're a good seller. Clicky click.
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that we do well here through experiments and through like the successes and fails of product listings is SEO, the messaging of the product listing, and conversions. So on your outside brands, off Amazon, I mean, conversions are typically under 3%, and that's pretty good. On Amazon, that might not be good enough depending on the product category that you're currently in. So one thing to know about Amazon, because there is already traffic to it with millions of buyers every day, is understanding the Amazon algorithm. Hands here, who uses social media? Hands up, like Instagram, TikTok. I don't think maybe Facebook, but to a lesser extent. Amazon has its own algorithm, and that's built on conversion rate and pricing. So Shai mentioned pricing earlier. Amazon's algorithm is based on giving the customers what they want when they want it. So we're very wary about ads here. We do a really great job of it. We have a industry guru that does it, but we are always wary about sending traffic that is money out of the brand's pocket to a listing that will not convert. We know what converts through long tail keywords, generic keywords, and we understand SEO here. SEO is different on Amazon compared to Google. So I'm sure a lot of you do some Meta, do some Google. Amazon has its own beast in terms of how to do so. And part of our job here is educating you why we're choosing certain keywords to be part of that conversion. And more you convert customers, the more your sales velocity continues, the more Amazon provides you visibility. We're getting really long here. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Having an assortment that's a loss leader, again, beautiful creative assets, your storefront that tells a story and why people need to buy it. What's the problem you're solving for them? Bestseller ranking, there's something called bestseller rankings in every product. So Shai mentioned Check Glass nail files. In nail files and buffers, we're number 2 out of probably like 20,000 different nail files on Amazon, and having competitive pricing. So conversions equals sales velocity, and that means growth. Next. I'm really sorry, guys. So we're gonna harp on inventory here. There's also, this lends itself to the algorithm itself having an amazing shipping performance, which we spoke about earlier. Understanding your needs. Are you going to do FBA where Amazon does the fulfillment for you, the customer service for you? That's about 40% of what retail price you would be charging, versus FBM, which is where you sell and ship the product yourself. Amazon just gives you a platform for their millions of sellers. The merchant is you, so you can sell it through your 3PL and you can package it through your home. But keep in mind, you're also buying shipping labels possibly from Canada Post, US Postal Service, etc. So you need to factor that into your financial reporting as well. The other part is UPCs, ASINs, and FNSKUs. I'm sure a lot of you are understand what GS1 is. UPC is key on Amazon, so having proof of owning that barcode. If you don't, you're at risk of having some other brand hijack your listing that's doing very well. Understanding your days of supply and what work backflow you need to know from supplier, overseas courier, fulfillment. Amazon can take up to 2 weeks to check in your products and make it available. So understanding that before your Prime Days, your Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Christmas, etc. We talked about running out of inventory and how that could impact your ad efficiency and your sales velocity. And that just means providing more opportunity to your competitors when you run out of inventory. Because when I look up nail file and I don't find this in stock, I'll just buy the next one. Okay. Stranded inventory, something that is a new concept to a lot of e-commerce brands. Amazon sometimes doesn't know where to put your product, even though you've been selling it for a very long time. It's very frustrating. It's floating in the middle of nowhere. People can't buy your product. And it can take up to days for Amazon to put it back where it belongs. Either they don't know where to put it. There might be some confusion as to what the labels are. Amazon workers aren't scientists. They see a label, the robots pick the product. So if it's not clear to them, they're not going to put it on a shelf. They're not going to put it in a box. It's not going to go to a customer. Oh, sorry. I'm clicking. Common issues, pitfalls. This is where I come in handy for you guys. Delayed profitability. So Amazon holds back some of your disbursements. So I don't know if any of you are on eBay or other Walmart, possibly, thinking that, hey, I sold $200, I should get $200 like within my 2 weeks. That might not be the case. That brings itself to inventory replenishment. I was hoping to get that $200 to replenish my inventory with my supplier, but I don't have that $200. Inventory mishaps, maybe they get lost, maybe they get damaged. There are other mechanisms for us to reconcile that. However, hey, like DHL didn't deliver it correctly, or it's broken. What do I do? Product restrictions is a higher level conversation, but is very important in the food category. So sometimes, thank you. Yeah, sometimes products might all of a sudden be restricted and you might need to apply for new certifications or provide updated non-expired certs. Packaging, a lot of brands maybe could optimize with a smaller packaging to come down a tier so they're not being charged a more expensive fulfillment fee. So like this does not need, have you ever seen those like memes with these products in like a huge box? So that's something that brand owners should be cognizant of. Make sure your packaging is sturdy and that you're proud of it as well. Competition in category, black hat activity. When you're at the top or even at the bottom of this rat race, you'll have people coming for you. Like that's the one thing about Amazon is that there's a lot of black hat activity that goes under the radar. That's where we come in. We've seen it. I think we've seen it all, but sometimes they surprise me. And you know what's surprising to a lot of brands and maybe not surprising is that a lot of ex-Amazon executives are behind that black hat activity. They know what flies under the radar to take down your brands and your products. That suite is mostly bots, but sometimes they might log in and try to sell your product. And I don't know if you guys know about reseller policy on Amazon, but anyone can resell an authentic product as long as they have passed all the compliance. So that's another thing that we're doing on our end right now. We're currently at the top and just fighting for our lives to stay at number 2, number 3. Price wars and race to the bottom is one pitfall that a lot of us fall into and then decide to quit. Truthfully, that was my issue when I started in 2017, when I realized, you know, Anna in her basement suite cannot compete with a Chinese competitor. That's MOQ is beyond just 500. It's like 10,000. So that's one pitfall that you want to take a look at when you're in your product category of like milk and spices and cakes, relaxation drinks as well, or overvaluing products. So we love our products. We're passionate about our products. We believe it's worth $30.99, $199. Sometimes that needs to be taken back. Sometimes you need to lose a bit of money in the first 6 months to really build that brand. The other pitfall, feedback and reviews. Again, we love our products. We're passionate about it. How dare they say they weren't relaxed by my drink? My cake was dry. The spices weren't good. Take that feedback and review with a grain of salt. Usually only like, I would say 1 to 5% actually review your product. There's going to be haters. That's okay. That's normal. You're going to get it. What we do, is this you? Yep. Okay, we're gonna switch it back to Shai. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys. So in 2 sentences, what we do is, and you know, there's a bunch of materials behind that, but we help brands succeed on Amazon, and we do that through 2 things. First of all, we operate the store, which means we manage the listings, we pick the keywords, we help make sure the right creative there, and we resolve all the issues that Amazon may ultimately flag for you. Second of all is that we do the performance marketing. We make sure that ads are both effective and efficient and coincide with a growth curve. And so we really are a one-stop shop for any brand that is looking to have a turnkey solution for their Amazon channel needs. And with that, hopefully there's enough time for Q&A that we discussed. So maybe this is a good time to put a pin in the presentation and really open things up to discussion. So feel free to either put your hand up, post your hands in the chat. I'll let the wonderful team from Whitespace moderate.
I have a question.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Hi. So you mentioned trademarks, and I've never, like, I have a curry powder. So if I was to sell on Amazon, do I need to have a trademark for a food product?
You should. So Elizabeth, what you'll find on Amazon is that there's a lot of different types of curry powder. A lot of food brands that you see like at Choices, even Superstore and No Frills will also be on there. And you're competing against those curry powders and different spice brands, right? Having a trademark is important in case like all of a sudden you do very well and you're selling 200, 300 units. All of a sudden Shy's curry powder comes on. And it's like, you know what? I have a faux one. I'm just going to add myself to that buy box because you can as a reseller. I'm going to make the same label as Elizabeth and put it up there. But what the trademark does is provides you brand registry, and brand registry will help you take down that fake Shy curry powder. Also,
Okay.
yeah, it provides you other privileges besides fighting off competition.
And so you mentioned the organizations. Can you say the names again for the trademark? I think you mentioned them and
Yeah. So the Canada one is
Canadian
CIPO.
Intellectual Property, CIPO,
CIPO, and then,
CIPO.gc. That's it.
and then the US
CIPO.gc. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. And what's the one for the US?
USPTO. Top of my head, I can't remember what that stands for. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, that's fine. I'll find it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's your first start, and that's what we mean by resources as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great question.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
We have a next person, Morley, with her hand raised.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hi, Morley.
I think you're muted, Morley. Morley, you're muted. I don't know if she can hear me. Yeah.
Sorry, I tell you, with all this, I'm being mute and unmuted.
Okay.
Good afternoon. You talked earlier about shipment, which is Amazon can ship your product, do everything. And while we are doing our product, and you talked, yes, we have to think about the shipping box, the label, whether it's going to be Canada Post, UPS. But as a startup, would you say it may be better for me to do the shipping because I'm charging the customer the shipping? So it's not coming from my own pocket as against Amazon?
Okay, so I would say that that's FBM, so that's fulfillment by merchant that you're inquiring about.
Yeah.
To charge, it's different on Amazon. If you're to charge the customer the shipping, you would have to embed that into the price point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that price point. If I am, for example, an SD and my product is $8 on SD, can I make it be $10 on Amazon, for example? Or I shouldn't have my price higher on Amazon versus an SD?
So yeah, it's interesting. The Amazon algorithm will scour and will do those comparisons. Ultimately, for it to be apples to apples, the shipping price should be in. We generally recommend that brands start, depending on the brand, but generally on FBA, so fulfilled by Amazon, which means you send your product to Amazon and Amazon sends it to the customer. There's a number of reasons for that. First of all, it's less complicated. Right? So you send large shipments to Amazon, and unless you have a really good distribution network, nationwide, North America wide, through your 3PL, then Amazon just does a better job. Second is that through FBA, you're able to get same day delivery, next day delivery, which really helps out in terms of the decision-making process for your customers. And then lastly is the notion that because Amazon makes money through FBA, the algorithm will favor you by doing it through FBA rather than through FBA.
Can I just build on that? Sorry?
One final keywords. I think that's very important for keywords, right? So I think if we're going to be listing a product, for example, and we got to look at similar products that's doing very well on Amazon to make sure that our product has the same kind of keywords in it. Because we could have it on there, and if the keywords are not strong, it may not get to the top either, right?
Yeah, so keywords are important. So you want to start with something more specific. Generic keywords, you will get lost in the shuffle. So you'll find that let's just say you were to shop computer mouse, the ones that have the most sales and reviews will be at the top.
Mhm.
Any of the new ones will be at the bottom unless they're spending a lot on Amazon ads. It's very competitive. So we usually try to do long tail keywords, but honestly, I could do a whole session on keywords. It's a whole thing in itself. But you want it to be as most relevant, kind of like when you're Googling something, you want to be like Logitech Logitech computer mouse, Logitech version mouse. So, but the thing is, Amazon customers are very impatient. They just type whatever in. And that's where we have experimented on keywords to see what consumer behavior would actually do, and we can usually figure out what they're going to spit out in terms of which products. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
whole thing in itself. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, just for shipping, when you're doing FBA, the great thing is Amazon is partnered with UPS for small parcel partnered carrier rates. So they make it pretty easy in the shipment plan to allow you guys to just print labels from them and just slap it on the cartons that you're sending in. Whereas FBM, you have to do all that, like buy a label, put it on, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
you.
Marley.
Thank you, Morley.
You're welcome.
Bookie, you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Shai, and it's been quite an informative session. So, you probably have noticed that a number of people on the call are they have food businesses or food product, and so I'm just looking in terms of comparison with other channels like the big box stores, retail. Looking at the unit economics, I kind of feel like the numbers are very similar to what looking at the Amazon's fee, the platform fee, the FBA, and all of that. When you tally it, it kind of comes very close to what you would be expecting if you were looking to go into retail. So I'm just wondering, what are like some incentives if someone had to pick between, should I go retail, should I go Amazon? How do they compare? What would be like the case for Amazon versus going to retail? Then if I could add a second question, please.
I mean, your first question is already super excellent, so the bar is pretty high.
Okay, I'll pause if there's time. Then I can go to the second one.
No. I was gonna say, yeah, please go ahead. I was gonna say it's an excellent question. So it's it's I would like to hear the second one.
Okay, got that. Thank you. So also considering that there are different regulatory requirements across different countries. For example, for Canada, you would require French translation on your packaging, and probably not so for the US. Would you need to then have separate packaging, or how do you manage that across board?
Okay.
Maybe I'll start on the first question.
Yeah, I'll take the second
second question is also very important and tactical. So look, there is no magic bullet for deciding which channel works best for you, right? And the question really is one of opportunity and risk versus reward. So ultimately, being a CFO, my mind goes to the economics, and really it's a question of what makes sense to you economically from which channel to launch. And so, if you're able to fulfill and feed the beast on retail and really provide your retail partner with good, consistent inventory, and you have that relationship, then that's a good way to do it. On the retail level, you may be it's maybe a little bit more forgiving when it comes to some products that may not be perfect, in the same way that Amazon is really kind of transparent on that front. So the product should be a little further along. Now, that said, I mean, usually companies either do direct to consumer and kind of advertise, and the economics there may be a little challenging, but you're building your community, you're building your retailers, you're building your following, you're kind of building your brand. On the retail side, there's probably a good local play where it's a nice Toronto story, it's a nice Canadian story, and you're able to kind of accelerate on that. It also allows you to refine a little more and get some more indirect and soft feedback. And then chances are you're probably more ready for Amazon at that point. Really, whether you're ready for Amazon comes down to those 5 criteria that we discussed. Bless you. For those 5 criteria discussed. And if you feel that you can strongly meet those 5 criteria or mostly meet those 5 criteria, then you're ready for Amazon. Otherwise, it's you start with whatever channel is the path of least resistance and the path to largest scale for you. And so I'm not sure if that really answers your question, Bookie, in a way that's meaningful, but it's a case by case thing, I would think, based on your business.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So, so your point might be great to have established a platform and got some traction, then then maybe you consider going to Amazon. Yeah, so it does answer my question. Thank you.
Perfect. Anna?
I'm so sorry. What was the second question again? I was just busy.
Yeah,
listening.
I
regulation.
was talking for too long, and so as a consequence, Anna.
Well, my questions were also quite long-winded, but the other one was like the regulatory requirements for packaging across different countries. You don't need French translation in the US, but you would need
Mhm.
that for Canada. So do you need to have two separate packaging, or is there like a middle ground?
It's one way, one-sided, I would say. We've done food products for both US and Canada. Canada is very strict with
Yeah,
policy, right?
Amazon Canada.
Amazon
to be clear,
Canada.
because there's the country regulatory and there's Amazon regulatory. So let's distinguish between the
So
two.
they are very literal in how they read health
French and
numbers,
English.
food numbers, the category it's in.
Yeah.
So we had like protein powders versus like gummies for a while, and we had protein bars. So the Canada to US isn't as difficult. So what we do recommend, if you can, and I would say most of you guys are Canadian, right? To start Canada, it's easier because you have all of your business numbers, tax numbers probably set up already, right? And then if it is French already, that's great, sell on Canada. It's up to the brand owner how far you want to take it in terms of like moving to US afterwards, or if you're US only. US only, you don't have to put in the French. There's less compliance when you want to list your product. But what I find is if you're going to do one and then the other, I would recommend Canada and then the US, because what US kind of does is like, oh, Canada approved it, let's just kind of go along with it. Where it's US, they'll approve anything, and then Canada's like, oh, we're kind of wary, we have more issues with it. So those are my recommendations. And just to build on the first point about like retail versus e-commerce, picking your battle in terms of the low-hanging fruit, like if you have a 3PL in the US, or sorry, was retail or was it marketplace?
It was retail, direct to consumer, or other channels. Like, how would you, if you're assessing between the channels, how would you choose for Amazon?
Oh, okay, sorry, I have no comment on the first.
Fair.
So
fair enough.
sorry, Anna. So let's go back to your point. So you said start with Canada first because they're more strict. But once you start selling in Canada, could you use that same packaging to sell in the US, or do we need to create a new package with no French?
So there's a go ahead.
You don't need the French, or if there is French, you can still do so. Just make sure that you're following the FDA guidelines. From the last time I looked at it, it's very basic, and you can find it easily on any of the made in USA goods that you currently see. So ingredients, caloric, any type of like nutrients, what's entailed, and then I think it's pretty basic.
Maybe I'll add
Yeah,
just
it's
one more
basic
comment.
because I have my FDA registration. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
right.
yeah.
Maybe I'll just add one more comment to kind of summarize US versus Canada beyond the packaging. In general, Canada is a less competitive, more forgiving marketplace in terms of your product. And it's a good way to start on Amazon for a Canadian brand. Your inventory is closer. You don't have to worry about cross-border stuff. The trade-off is it's much more draconian on the regulatory side. So the way to think about it is that if you can make your way through the regulatory hurdles, you launch on Canada, you do well in Canada, you make some adjustments, and then go to the States.
Yeah.
And the brilliant thing about that is if you have a functioning, well-received product on Amazon.ca, you can take those ratings and reviews, which are very important, and move them to Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
perfect.
yeah, the thing with Canada is it's so, I want to say it takes a lot of energy and time and resources to get in. What you'll find is you'll have the big brands that you all know already in like choices in the superstore, but because it's so hard to get in, there's less competition, which is great. We only have one more minute.
So, I mean, we could probably stay a couple more minutes in case the conversation is running a little long, but it all depends on your availability. And I know that Marie Amazon, by the way, amazing last name. We love it. Maybe we could take, one or two more questions.
Can I just say something before?
Sure.
Some people need to hard stop. There are a lot of agencies and gurus out there. Don't trust all of them, and don't use your hard-earned money to spend on them, because a lot of them are not what they say they are. To understand if they're a good agency or an account executive for you, ask a lot of questions. Some of the things that we brought up today, tell me about your experience with compliance. Tell me your experience with account health, brand registry. If they cannot answer those questions, they are not the agency for you. So don't throw your money anywhere. Make sure you do your research before signing up.
That's a really good point. And anybody who's like, do my weekend workshop and you'll become
No.
an Amazon expert, that no longer really works. So
Yeah.
just be careful out there.
There's no like one shot. It's a work in progress and it takes a lot of time and energy. So we just want to make sure you guys are set up for success and using your resource where it matters to grow your brand.
Thank you, Anna.
I have one quick question because Canadian is bilingual in our product. Does US can go with just English alone, or we have to have Spanish and English on the
Only
product?
Spanish from the last time I checked.
Yeah, as long as it's FDA compliant, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maria's on. You've had your head up for forever.
Yeah, Maria, I think she might be.
hi. Oh,
Okay.
I thought it was someone else. Hey guys, so I have actually two quick questions. So one of them is about inventory, right? So if you do run out of inventory, like we currently sell on Amazon USA, our plant-based milk, and because we sell in stores in the US, so it was easier to just sell it there as well. So sometimes, I mean, there will be issues where we will run out of stock. And I know this is gonna happen at some point to one of our SKUs. So my question is that, so I know it is bad because it happened to us before, but is there like a way to kind of come back from that, right? In terms of like, what are the ways to remedy that situation if it does happen? Because it does happen, because sometimes one SKU would sell more than the other. And we have to prioritize like our retail accounts because there is like huge penalties if you don't ship to a distributor in the US, for example. And the second thing is about how truly do you think that right now optimization is something that will help a brand if you don't spend a ton of money? Because we've kind of tried all of it, right? And I think at this point our page is highly optimized, and we did work with an agency before, and I did some work myself because I had a little bit of experience doing that. But I feel like we've done everything we could in terms of the keywords, and then where we get traction is when we spend on ads, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, like you really have to look at the ROI, and we don't want to overspend. But where does it stop right now? And it's a competitive category that we are into, which is plant-based milk. There's a lot of players that have a lot of money, even though we're vastly different, but at the same time, we're bidding on the same keywords, right? Some of them, because those are the keywords that people are searching more. Almond milk is a big one. For example, you have to bid on it, even though it's not really what we're selling, but because we're converting, so we're bidding on this, but it's very expensive, with the ads. So that was kind of like the second question.
Tale as old as time.
I'm not qualified to answer any of those, by the way. So that's all, Anna.
Tale as old as time. Your scenario is very normal and predictable and common. The out of stock situation happens to the best of us, even us who has an entire team on a brand. Maybe something happens with your supplier, or maybe suddenly you found a campaign or keyword that like shoots it through the roof and you're like, I was not expecting this type of velocity. Why is it at 5 times the rate that it normally does? And once it takes off, it takes off. Or you're like, hey, suppliers are on vacation, or Christmas cleared out my stock. January, February is like the roughest time for most brands on Amazon. They run out of stock from the winter, and then like if you have a different supplier, they usually go on vacation around then because they can't. What we normally do to mitigate that that velocity, first of all, we're very careful with knowing how many days of supply we have, knowing a work back plan of what our supplier is capable of doing, and how long during that time frame will it take Amazon to check in our product. So you'll know it's slower during Q1, Q2, like you can get stuff in pretty quickly within a week or so. Prime days, you're lucky if you get it in within like 2-3 weeks, and then the system slows down. So being strategic with your time placements of when you're inbounding. If you are doing everything that you can and you're still heading towards that like brick wall where you're like, shoot, it's gonna go out of stock, try to pull back pricing. So I know we talked about keeping pricing low, but start incrementing it higher. Increments of 50 cents to $1 at a time. The thing is, a slowdown is better than a stop. And then for part B of your number one question is there any coming back from it? Yes, it takes again that uphill sort of climb again, which would be a higher, steeper climb than if you stocked out, right? Sorry, than if you were to slow it down and raise the price. So did that make sense? So raise the price, pull back your campaigns, understand your supplier work back plan. If all else fails, yes, you can come back from it. We had a brand that just came back from a year and a half of stocking out. They're selling 600 protein bars every 30 days. So it is doable, but that lends itself to number two, the keyword bidding, PPC campaigns, Amazon traffic. What can you do to not overspend and put yourself in the hole? I'm not the PPC guru. I leave that to my right-hand guy. Yeah, keywords are expensive and you have to pay to play. That's Amazon's game. And you actually get more and more brand reputation and credibility and invites to different types of Amazon internal programs and events and meeting actual Amazon executives when you continue that spend. I can't answer that for you. Like, I'm not the expert in that. I'm more of the SEO expert. So yeah, I do understand there's a limit.
One thing I would suggest is that of all the things to do on Amazon, the biggest black box is kind of performance marketing. It's a very specialized, quantitative, dynamic skill set.
Yeah.
And if you're working with an agency, I would lean on them to make sure that they're delivering that right performance for you.
Yeah.
Because for a brand owner, it's like learning Greek, right? You know, you can figure out how to ultimately run your Amazon store and do it fairly well. Performance marketing optimization is tough. And so, you know, if they're providing, if you're doing 25% tacos, total advertising cost of sales, your agency should be able to do 20 simply because they're more technically proficient at what that takes, right? And so, and that 5% matters. And really, this is the place to kind of make sure that the professional you're working with is sufficiently professional.
Okay. Did that help? So also, if you're
No,
looking,
it definitely helps. And I think part of the issue is when every time we scale, like currently I'm just managing it myself, right? And I'm keeping it at 10% tacos. But every time we scale, then it goes, you know, to double that revenue, your tacos becomes 30%, right? Then, or 40 even. Then it takes a while to go back down. Then like what we're trying to figure out, like, how do I maintain the tacos a little bit consistent, right, while increasing the revenue? But again, like, long story short, we'll kind of revise that again. We'll revise that again.
Also, just think ahead of the game for the seasons as well. Like, that's what I can suggest. Campaigns take a while to build up and optimize, just like your product listing.
Yeah.
Different for PPC. Yeah.
Thank you.
We do have a question through the message from Heal Tea. Speaking of advertising, we already have a store in Canada. We opened the market in US. Great job. Boost Sales and created a discount coupon. However, they are not authorized due to lack of sales history. In these cases, what can be done to boost sales? So Amazon needs something called like a reference pricing. It's sales history. So the thing is, I could grab this check glass nail file and be like, hey guys, it's $49. Don't you hate when like places like Best Buy do that, where they raise the prices only to discount it to give you a sale, but really it's not a sale? That's what Amazon is trying to avoid. So not profiteering as much off of the customer. So this is not worth $49.99. They know that. What they want is for customers to buy this at $49.99 to prove to them that this is worth $49.99. So you need at least 5, 10, 15 sales, verified sales, no returns, no refunds, and then you can apply your discount coupon. Heal Tea, what I would recommend to help you save some money is actually don't use discount coupons, because that's going towards your margins and you're paying for every coupon that's clipped and added to cart and sold. Use a Prime exclusive discount. That's free. So you're giving them a discount, but they're not also eating away for just clipping a coupon. So if you can do a Prime exclusive discount, I believe if it's non-Prime days, it's up to 10 to 15%, which is not too bad. Discount coupons start at 5%. they look great in the search, but if you don't have sales history, that would possibly also be another alternative. But you still need a reference price with purchasing. Yeah. Did that help?
Yeah, I think that was all of our questions.
Yeah.
So we'll end this session there. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying a little bit over time. And thank you so much for a wonderful session, Anna and Shai. We definitely learned a lot from you guys, and we're grateful for you guys taking the time to be here with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined the session today. We're happy to have shared space with you all too. And yeah, we'll end it off there. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks for the
guys. Great job,
hospitality and have a
everybody.
wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very
It was a
much.
good
Bye-bye.
session. Thanks.
Thank you.